This is Bloomberg Markets. I'm Scarlett Fu.
And I'm Julia Chatterley. The fifth round of NAFTA talks is starting in Mexico City today, but cabinet-level ministers are not attending for the first time. I believe they're going to arrive on Friday. And with reports of tension and animosity in the air, what does it signal for the future of the trade deal? Joining us from Capitol Hill is Republican Senator James Lankford of Oklahoma. Senator, great to have you on the show. Thank you so much. Part of the tension and the animosity has been caused by the tough line here that the United States is taking. Is hardball, playing hardball here by the United States, the right strategy?
Well, we're about to find out, actually. The administration said they didn't want to do the Trans-Pacific Partnership. They want to do bilateral deals. Our hope is today the president's announcing the first of those bilateral deals, which we need to see the first one, and then we can take on the rest of them from there. And if we can get improved status on NAFTA and some other things, good. But at the end, we still need to be able to maintain very open, free trade. Our whole world economy is based on it, and certainly the United States economy is based on good trade.
I'm glad you bring up trade overall, because the TPP nations, Senator, have agreed to move forward with their own trade deal without the United States. And, of course, this follows President Trump's decision to remove the United States from it. Does it worry you that here in the U.S. we could see a weaker position in Asia, one of the world's fastest growing regions, while at the same time China's star is rising?
So the goal of the TPP originally was to be able to form a trade alliance bloc that would block China out from that. There'd be a common set of trade agreements. China is excluded from that. If those nations form that bloc and you still exclude China, that accomplishes that goal. But we have got to see the United States have trade agreements with all of those nations. Some of them we already have, Canada, Australia, others that we have, others we don't, that are more difficult. So when we see those bilateral trade agreements and start to get those locked and put in the bag, I'll be a little more content on that. But right now, we want to see them get the first nation get resolved, and then you keep moving from there.
Donald Trump, the president, has repeatedly said that he could walk away if a better deal isn't signed here and give the 6-month notice of the warning, it seems, of walking away from this. Is that a bad option for the United States, bottom line?
Yeah, I assume you're talking specifically on NAFTA on that.
Yes, sorry.
That's all right. No, the NAFTA agreement's obviously exceptionally important to the United States economy. And while there are some concerns and issues with that, those should all be concerns and issues that we can address in an ongoing negotiation. Hopefully the president's playing hardball. I think that he is. That's a natural negotiator that he is. This is like a big real estate deal for him to be able to resolve. First, you got to put out the boundaries of it, and then to be able to negotiate the deal. But things like a sunset that's been proposed, I think, destabilizes any NAFTA conversation. We shouldn't have a trade agreement that has a natural end. That just encourages people to not trade and not invest if there's a sunset that's pending out there with uncertainty.
Yeah, which makes total sense. What else do you think is being done here, actually, that doesn't make sense?
Well, I think there's been a lot of conversation about trade deficits and trying to keep the United States from having a trade deficit. That's incredibly difficult to do with other nations. When we're a quarter of the world's economy, other nations are not going to have the purchasing power that we have. Mexico doesn't have near the purchasing power of the United States. So if the goal is parity, or for us to be in the black with every nation, including Mexico and Canada, that's going to be very, very difficult to do, if not impossible, just based on the size of our economy. So we're trying to encourage the United States Trade Representative, when he's going through the negotiations, to focus on how we can advance our products, how we can work on supply chains across borders, not to try to emphasize a trade deficit alone as some mark that has to be achieved.
Yes, U.S. has to borrow and buy less, if so.
Yes. Well, I want to stay on the topic of deficit, because that brings us to tax reform, which is what the Congress is working on at the moment. Do you support this latest move to include the individual mandate repeal in the tax bill?
I actually do support that, and the reason being, obviously, it is a tax, and it's a tax that hits directly to the middle class. About 81% of the people in my state that pay the individual mandate fee make $50,000 or less a year. That is directly into the middle class, and they are actually suffering the consequences. Those are individuals that don't have insurance, but they do have a tax penalty. They'd rather have insurance. So repealing the individual mandate doesn't take away the subsidies, doesn't remove the assistance from all those individuals, but it does free up those that are in the middle class to not have to pay that penalty.
Should it be tied to approving the Obamacare fix that's been sponsored by Alexandra Murray, the bipartisan agreement, or not agreement, but framework?
Sure. I don't know whether it'll be tied to that. There's a lot of conversation that they'll be close by in the vote, but I don't see them being the same vote at the same time. I would assume that those are two different votes at two different moments.
Senator, where do you stand on the issue of Roy Moore? Would you like to see him step aside here and just allow clarity on the decision of that Senate seat?
I do, actually. I'd like to see him be able to step aside. Obviously, it would help the people of Alabama as they're trying to make their choice. They're uncomfortable, some of them, voting for a Democrat that they politically don't agree with some of his policies, but they're also uncomfortable voting for someone with such a cloud over their head as a Republican as well. It's exceptionally difficult for the people of Alabama and, quite frankly, for the nation as well to be able to watch all of these accusations from multiple different individuals come out, and for Roy Moore to not have a clear denial and his story changing several times. What this has brought, though, is has brought the attention to the nation that whether you're in Hollywood or whether you're in media or whether you're on Capitol Hill, your personal behavior should matter for leaders, and we should hold leaders to a higher account. I want leaders, whether in whatever format that they may be, to be individuals that would be good role models for the next generation. And if this pushes our nation to be able to evaluate that again, to say let's hold each other to a higher standard, then that's a positive long-term result.
What do you expect from the president here? Should he put pressure on Roy Moore to step aside? Do you want him to come out today when he makes his statement and say, look, Roy, you need to step aside?
I would hope that he would make any conversations with Roy Moore personally on a phone call or face-to-face, that they would be able to have that protracted conversation rather than try to communicate it through the media. I would hope today that when he comes out to be able to talk about trade, he's announcing either pending trade agreements or the first of several trade agreements in Asia, because those are exceptionally important to be able to get in the bag and get done.
All right, we've come full circle then back to trade. Thank you so much to Senator James Lankford of Oklahoma joining us from Capitol Hill.